Welcome to episode 33 of the Bulls Recap Podcast. I am Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times. You can obviously read me in the Sun-Times. You could follow me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at @JCowleyHoops. It's a fun follow right now if you're a Bulls fan. Come football season, it's not so fun if you're a Bears fan, but you get the gist of it. Here we are. We are in NBA free agency. It has not been as crazy and wild as I thought it would be. And again, that is life in the apron, first apron, second apron, whatever teams are in. There's just very little room for teams. We saw that in Milwaukee. I mean, to me, that was the biggest surprise right now of the week, of them just saying flat out, hey, we're waiving Dame. We're Dame time. The clock has stopped on you. We're going to waive it and stretch his contract out and kick that can down the road. And still try and be competitive. Don't know if they will be. So that's interesting. But the rumors that Bulls fans are praying for is Giannis is unhappy. And a couple of years ago, he mentioned Chicago as a place where everybody wants to play. I have a better chance of playing Milwaukee than Giannis has playing for the Bulls anytime soon. They just don't have the capital to get him, whether it's draft capital, immediate talent capital. So we can erase that right now. But let's get to the Bulls and what they've done so far in free agency. The first domino to fall was the Sun-Times. Joe Cowley, me, reported that Lonzo Ball and Kobe White were both being talked about in trades leading up to draft night. It was not for the draft. It was just being talked about and heavily discussed with numerous teams. And then a couple days after the draft, they went and pulled the deal out with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs said Isaac Okoro. He was the 5th overall pick from the 2020 draft. He went right after Patrick Williams. Bulls were rumored to really have liked him in the workouts, and there were some mock drafts that had them taking Okoro 4 instead of Patrick Williams. Now the two get to be teammates for now. So what that means, first of all, Lonzo Ball, it was great covering him. The consummate professional. I just wish we could have seen more availability from him. You know, that kind of stuff's not his fault. It was a injury that no one in the NBA has ever come back from, and he came back from it. It's not his knee. It's the knee of a cadaver, totally rebuilt. I enjoyed covering Lonzo. He's not what I thought. I had a chance to talk to his dad, LeVar. Not what I thought. I found him to be very just kind of matter of fact and fun to talk to. I talked to him in Charlotte one time, and what you saw on TV and what you saw, the kind of promoting he did, Don King type promoting he did, or Jake Paul, whoever is a great promoter. And you look, he was great at it. He got 2 kids in the NBA and 1 kid with a promising rap career. So, and on the court, I mean, Lonzo's just a winner, just does every little thing. It might not even appear in the box score. He's very Caruso-like, where he makes your team better. And it's just unfortunate that we didn't get to see prime Lonzo Ball. So he moves on, goes to Cleveland. Great fit for Cleveland. Donovan, I don't think anything's going to change in their backcourt. So we're talking Spider Mitchell and we're talking Garland. You can't pick on those two anymore at the end of games because they could stagger them. They could do different things and bring Lonzo in, and you can't hump those guys out on the defensive end now. I think that's huge for that team because the front court defense is elite. That was never the question, but what we saw in the playoffs from the Indiana Pacers, Cavs were injured, but they hunted guys down. When Garland did play and he wasn't hurt, Mitchell wasn't 100%, but they hunted them down. That's going to be tough to do late in games when you have Lonzo Ball, as long as he's healthy. So what do the Bulls get back? I liked Isaac Okoro coming out of college. I thought he could turn into an adequate three-point shooter, which he had, especially from the corner. I think he was 39% 2 seasons ago. It may have dipped to 37 this past season as his minutes were dwindling. I think he's a great wing defender. I think he's kind of everything they wish Patrick Williams was. So I see him really challenging Patrick Williams for that starting spot alongside Modest in the front court. That's just how highly I think of him. I don't think he changes their fortunes. I think he is a piece moving forward, a piece that's more valuable than Patrick Williams would be. It puts Patrick coming off the bench, which he did when he wasn't injured the second half of the season after Modest took his spot anyway. So I think they need to get away from this 3-guard all the time lineup and concentrate more on the wings, taller guys, athletic guys that can run the floor. Curl can do all of that. I'd like to see what he gets to the free throw line. So I'd like to see that improve from him, his aggressiveness, which I think it will in this offense. So overall, I think that was a win for the Bulls just because they're getting a guy who's available. That's what it comes down to. In a vacuum, Lonzo at his peak and his greatest strength on the court playing, Okoro on the court, his greatest strength playing. To me, it's a B+ in Lonzo and a B- C+ in Okoro in a vacuum with those two just playing. But that's not how the NBA works. And availability is a huge thing, and Lonzo wasn't available. So for that reason, I'd say the Bulls did themselves pretty solid because what this does, we're going to get to the other part of this now, Okoro will continue to make them aggressive in moving Patrick Williams. And you're not moving Patrick Williams by himself. Nobody wants that contract. 4 more years, $19 million a year, not happening. He can be packaged. The problem is right now, big money packages just aren't happening because of the apron. Could that change? Yes, when the smoke clears in the next week or so and teams see where they are and what their deficiencies are. Patrick does have places where he could fit and help out because his role would just be so one-dimensional. They wouldn't count on him being someone who gets in the driver's seat a little more often than he does. He could just stay in the back and be a passenger. The Lakers would just love him just to be a defensive wing, improve your rebounding somewhat, but just go and help lock guys down, come off the bench when LeBron's tired. And, LeBron's obviously not the defensive guy, but there's no package to be done there. So it's kind of wait and see, but they are aggressively still shopping guys. Patrick Williams atop that list. They're going to still do something with the guards, with the Kobe White, which I reported, Ayo Dosunmu, which I reported. Ayo's coming off the shoulder surgery. He's on pace to return in August, so that's good. He's cleared every obstacle, so it's not like teams are like, we're kicking around the medicals and we're not happy with it. That's not the case. So those guys are all in play. And the reason they're in play is we're going to get to the second domino to fall for the Bulls. Tre Jones is back. Billy Donovan's whoopee, his teddy bear, the one player that makes Billy sleep well at night, Tre Jones, the consummate point guard, the consummate quarterback to Billy running the offense and being the offensive coordinator. That's his guy. So the thing I liked about Tre Jones is he came to Chicago after the trade and with the Zach LaVine 3-team trade. And he came here and instantly was you could just see, just pro. First of all, he's like one of the nicest human beings in the world. But secondly, he's just a pro. Talks like a pro, acts like a pro, walks like a pro, plays like a pro. The days of 6'1", 6'2" point guards are slowly dwindling, but that doesn't mean you can't have one to come off your bench and steady the ship, especially when things are getting a little rocky late in games. That's what Tre Jones is. He did not turn the ball over very much. He's the opposite of Giddey and Kobe White to some extent in that department. Better defender than I thought. And the thing I love about him, his angles, his understanding angles at the rim and attacking the rim, really good. It's not Derrick Rose. I mean, Derrick was one of the best as far as just understanding angles, but he also had an uncanny athleticism. Iverson, same thing, uncanny athleticism for a smaller guard, understanding how to attack angles. But Tre Jones, just the way he's able to maneuver and manipulate, he knows when to slow down, play the Maverick game and hit the brakes and let him go right past you. He's got all the veteran finesse around the rim. He comes from a great, obviously, pedigree in San Antonio. So he understands basketball, comes from a great family with his brother Tyus out of Apple Valley here in Minnesota, where Cowley Estates North is hiding out for the summer. So I thought that was a must signing that I didn't think was going to happen because of financials. But again, this should be the lesson Tartaris Karnisovas, the executive in charge of this pile of dung at times. When you go and just hand out contracts willy-nilly with player options, Javon Carter and Patrick Williams, and you hand these out and you're just like, oh, it's just $7 million. It's just, this came down to pennies in order how to get this done. And in trading Lonzo Ball, that freed up some stuff for him. That made things a little more tolerable to go ahead and get Trey Jones and bring him back on. Because at first glance, it didn't look like the money was going to be there. So good on them for getting Trey Jones and giving Billy Donovan his guy that steadies the ship. So where does that leave us? This is the third domino. It's fallen, but it just has fallen quietly in the woods. They had all the rights to negotiate with Josh Giddey up to the trade deadline, up to the free agency period, which started on Monday as far as the negotiation part of it. Can't sign till July 6th or 7th, whatever that is. So we're still, 4 or 5 days away from the taping of this. Josh Giddey did not get signed. So that means maybe they've learned some lessons not to just go and hand out contracts. I think the key thing in this was when Brooklyn made the trade that they did and had to use some of that money, that made it almost, Brooklyn was really the only one that had the money. They could say, we're all in. Josh Giddey, because he's a restricted free agent, we're all in. $30 million a year. Next move on you, Bulls. Are you going to match it, or are we going to steal him from you? And the Bulls would have had to match it. That didn't happen. There's been no offer yet to Giddey, and there's no money out there for almost all the teams to make that offer for Giddey. So are the Bulls right now posturing and letting Josh Giddey sit there and think about it and then come in with something that is lower? I don't think it won't be insulting. They're not trying to insult the kid. But if they could do it for 25, better yet, $20 million a year, I'm guessing 25 is more realistic, 25 to 27. Think about that over 4 years. Say it's 25. And the going cost, everyone thought was going to be 30. He wanted the Jalen Suggs contract at the beginning of the year. They said no. He played himself into the Jalen Suggs contract extension at the end of the season, $30 million a year. Say it's 25. You do it over 4 years. I'm not a math major, but you can save $20 million over the next 4 years, $5 million a year. You don't think that $5 million could sneak in a guy? They got, I think Trey Jones is $7 million a year, something like that. I mean, it's, so it's not nickel and diming when you're the Bulls and you're stuck in mediocrity and you're operating from a hard cap that has been self-imposed. You just don't have that wiggle room. So if you could get $5 million a year off of Josh Giddey's the expectation of what the contract was going to be, that's a win. So I would take that if I was the Bulls. So the longer this has gone on, the better this is as far as the Bulls side of it, because that means there's negotiations going on. They're just not handing out Christmas presents like they have every offseason the last 3-4 years. Player option for you and a player option for you. And so then that leaves us to the last three culprits in all of this. The trade rumor guys, that is Nikola Vucevic, Kobe White, and Ayo, who we already mentioned. I can tell you this. There's a lot of talking going on. But again, these three, maybe not Kobe, but Vooch and Ayo are, okay, we couldn't get this done, so now we're going to explore this. Or we couldn't get this done, so maybe a sign and trade here. Give that a couple more days for it to show itself. Teams are not nearly complete. It has not been the rush, the Black Friday, squeezing through the door, everybody, the bell rings at 5:00 p.m. on Monday and guys were signing at 5:01. That was not the case. And again, it is because of the apron. Teams have to slowly kind of figure out, okay, well, we got this guy. What's the money on this guy? This guy's too expensive now. He'll put us near the apron. Let's back this up. And so that's what I think is going on right now. That's not to say that the Bulls haven't been active, however. I know for a fact, I've reported this twice now in the last couple weeks, that this is the most aggressive and the most open Karnisovas has been in making calls and more importantly, taking calls and giving more direct answers to teams instead of sitting silently on the phone and making the the person on the other end uncomfortable, which has been told to me by several executives that have had to deal with him. He's not the most fun guy to deal with. So it seems now that he is starting to understand, this is how I have to negotiate. I have to be more aggressive. I have to be open. He is starting to understand that. That's a good thing for not only the organization, but for him in this job, kind of learning as he goes along. It'd be nice if you hire a guy that actually was good at communication right away. But maybe he's getting there. So what we know, Arturas extension was done months ago. Mark Eversley extension was done shortly after that. They won't announce it, but you can rest assured the Billy Donovan extension is 99.9% done. That business is taken care of. That's why they wouldn't talk about Billy Donovan and his extension on draft night. Draft is out of the way. We know who they have. Noah Essige. We know what he needs work on. 18-year-old is going to need a lot of work. It's great now they got Isaac Okoro, because now you're not putting pressure on Essige that, hey, coming out of next week out of Vegas in Summer League, you got to be ready to go. You might be a rotation guy from us at 18. No, learn how to shave, learn the city of Chicago, learn the culture here a little bit more. You've got time, my guy. And get ready to play a lot of games at Hoffman Estates, because I think he'll be a regular for the G League team, the Windy City Bulls, for at least the first 4 to 5 months as they're negotiating the schedule and navigating the schedule and trying to find playing time for him that won't be there. And again, if Patrick Williams moves, that opens up another spot, but there's still too many players in front of him. He's way down on the rotation. So I wouldn't call this an exciting offseason so far. I'd say it's a smart offseason so far for Arturas. Maybe one of his smarter ones since he flipped the roster and got DeMar, and after he had gotten Vooch, at the trade deadline the year before, got Lonzo, Caruso. Those were smart moves. There hasn't been a lot of smart since then. This has been a smart offseason so far for AK. Still not sold that he's doing a good job or he understands how to build a championship roster. I still couldn't get the answers I wanted on draft night with Mark Eversley as far as how you're going to get that dude. You still don't have that dude. But the one thing they said, they're going to be very methodical about this. They aren't going to skip steps. I'm sure Bulls fans love to hear that. That patience is needed. So keep buying your season tickets and clapping like the sheep you are. It's going to take a couple more years. They got their extensions. They're in no rush. But I will say so far this offseason, he's been more calculated. He's been a bit more smart as far as how he's doing this instead of just running out and throwing bad contracts against the wall. We'll see how it finishes. But so far with the free agent period, I like what he's done. I'll give him a solid C. That's good for AK. A C. You didn't fail. You didn't impress me, but you're plugging along. C, maybe even a C plus. There you go, AK. All right, let's get to the rant. Cowley Island. So the New York Knicks are going to try selling their fan base, a fan base that has been suffering for 25 years, the last time they were in an NBA Eastern Conference finals. They're going to try selling them on Tibbs wasn't the guy, but Mike Brown is. The same Mike Brown who rode LeBron's coattails as long as he could ride it. The same Mike Brown who took over, to me, a couple of years ago, took over a Sacramento Kings team that was on the rise. Obviously, the West is loaded. I get that. Did a couple good things with them. But then this year, could not figure out how to coach DeMar DeRozan. Very little pick and roll, more of dribble handoffs. Trust me, DeMar DeRozan was pissed. And if you want to know how bad the offense was, ask a certain Bulls player who had to play for Mike Brown. And say what you want, the rip on the offense was out there by several people of how boring and stagnant it was. So the narrative on Tom Thibodeau, which is a false narrative because offensive efficiency, he's in the top 10, top 5 all the time and did so with the Knicks, was he wasn't creative enough offensively. They were up there in assists, which means you have to be moving the ball. They had the clutch player of the year, which means in the fourth quarter, he is delivering in key moments. Whether you love what he's doing or not, he's delivering. And you're going to settle for Mike Brown. Here's how this works. Here's how Thibodeau, the parting ways with Thibodeau works for every team. By about the second month, players start realizing that there's not the details that go into the scouting reports. There's not the details that go into the game plan. Things are slipping. That's the first thing they're going to notice. First, it's great. Mike's a good guy. He's not as gruff as Tom, blah, 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 blah. But then you're going to see details slip. Then the standings are going to slip a little bit. But wait, you added a bench now, so you're more talented than last year's Knicks team, because that Knicks team, the front office doesn't want to take the blame, but when they found out Mitchell Robinson was going to be out for the first 40 to 50 games, they make the big trade and basically sell the bench for Cat, and then expect Tom to make a bench out of guys that were projected to be 9th and 10th in the rotation. So come playoff time, you're going to see slippage in the standings. But the thing they're going to feel the most is the culture and the grind and the grit is going to be gone. That's gone. When you got rid of Tom, that's gone. So you got a nice guy. He's going to be a yes man to the front office. He's got a more talented team, and he will underachieve and not succeed. They're a playoff team because the East is wide open. It isn't like, whoa, what Tibbs didn't do much different. So enjoy the ride. It's going to be a slow free fall. It's going to be very painful, and it's going to be filled with regret, just like the previous teams that got rid of Tibbs, the Bulls, Timberwolves, and now the Knicks. There's a reason that all three slide after Tibbs leaves, and they're about to find that out. All right, let's get to the list. These are the teams so far that I feel like have had the best off season with the free agency and trades that they've done. We'll keep the draft kind of out of it because I've already addressed the draft, but these are the three teams. We'll start with number 3. Orlando still. The Desmond Bane trade, I cannot tell you what a fit he is for them because he brings defense along with Suggs in the backcourt, but now they've got a three-point shooting adult in the room. Love what they've done. They were the first one that saw this Boston thing is going to fade. This Indiana thing is fading. Let's jump and be a top 4 team in the East. They're going to do that. They probably edge Cleveland out. Cleveland, I think, saw that what needed to be stabilized and stabilize it. Number 2, never thought I'd say this team. This team is usually filled with stupid, but they're starting to figure something out. Now, if they can only move off Trae Young, and that's the Atlanta Hawks. Porzingis, Alexander Walker, Luke Kennard for some outside shooting. But the biggest thing they did, and not to get too much into the draft, and I'm not talking about the pick, but the trade they did with New Orleans to have New Orleans trade up and give unprotected first-round pick next year and a loaded 26 draft, which could be with New Orleans, if it falls to the wayside, Zion doesn't play and they have more injuries, could be a top 3 pick, and you land one of those big 3, whether it's A.J. DeBonsa, Stevenson, or Boozer's kid. You land one of those 3, and then you still got Asa Newell, who I really like going to the Bulls at 12. You still got him later in this 25 draft. Golf clap to you, Atlanta, for the first time operating with intelligence. Number 1, without question, the Houston Rockets. Trade, get KD, big boy scorer. Not a leader. He's not a leader. That's fine. You got re-up Fred VanVleet. Love him. Love his game. There's your leader. Dorian Finney-Smith, you steal him from the Lakers. Another wing defender. And Clint Capella, great rim runner, rim protector, can come off the bench, just kind of protect things. And then you got rid of Dylan the villain. I have to admit, I do kind of like Dylan Brooks. He humors me, but sometimes it works the wrong way. And then Jalen Green. I think Jalen Green has a lot of raw athletic ability. I just don't know what he is. I just don't know if he's just a athlete with, jack of all trades, master of none, and really will just turn into a guy who sometimes can flash 30 and other days can disappear. I don't know. But again, Houston said Oklahoma City is the standard, and we are chasing that standard. We are raising our bar to where their bar is. So I think right now they might be the second best team in the NBA besides OKC. So kudos to them. Something big building down in Houston. Dallas, Texas is going to be an interesting place for basketball this year. You got to mention what Dallas did with just getting Cooper Flag and the way they've kind of stumbled into things. But those are the three teams, and it goes Orlando, Atlanta, Houston. Three best off seasons. Bulls fans, stay tuned. Could have an emergency podcast if the Josh Giddey thing gets done. But until then, I've got next.